Tell us a little bit here. Are you tired of shaking hands and kissing babies yet?
Not at all. It's been an exhilarating experience, actually. First of all, I can't believe how much I've learned in the last 4 years. You know, one thing when you run as a first-time candidate, I didn't think about was how many people you meet and how many people reach out and how you really connect with community and really get to know the place where you live. And so it's been quite an honor to serve these last 4 years.
Yeah, that's awesome there. So for people who don't know you, obviously you've been deputy mayor.
Yeah.
Give us just a very brief background of who you are and what you're standing on running for this election.
Yeah, so who I am, I'm a 45-plus year career professional in communications and brand and marketing and lobbying, and quite a very varied background. Executive director of the North Dakota Water Coalition, executive director of the North Dakota Newspaper Association, was an executive at Blue Cross Blue Shield when I retired after 16 years there. So a wide variety of really good background to serve as Fargo's next mayor. And I'm running on four principled pillars. The first is fiscal responsibility. And what I mean by that is truly having a list of strategic priorities, starting with zero-based budgeting as a tactic, but then being very clear on what the city's priorities are and sticking to those priorities, of course, always having to have some flexibility depending on things that happen. But that's very important to me, and I have extensive background in budgeting and managing budgets strategically. Secondly, public safety is a huge priority. I'm so glad that we have completed the process of hiring Chief Stefanowicz. I think you're going to see a difference in how we approach community and community policing, and we need to continue to invest in those resources. Certainly the public safety sales tax passage was a big help there, but we're currently at almost full staff again, and we need to continue to invest in technology and programs there, and wellness is a big component of that for them. And then, transparency is very important to me, given my background in communication. I did a lot of lobbying and open records, open meetings in my past, and bringing the community along, bringing citizens along ahead of issues, truly getting input. We have some tools we've not leveraged fully for that, on how we truly understand sentiment in the community on certain issues. And then the last is professionalism. I think Fargo deserves professionalism from the dais, and it begins with the chair of the commission leading the boards, not being afraid to use the gavel if there's behavior or comments made that either are inaccurate or, simply not true, but ensuring that the decorum we've put in place through our governance policies is followed. And I have extensive experience in serving and leading boards and commissions in my past. So I feel really comfortable in that space. I spent 10 or 12 years in Toastmasters. I understand Robert's Rules of Order. I think the perfect combination for Fargo's next mayor.
Sure. What was there a specific thing that had happened that made you want to run for mayor, or has this been in the making for years?
I feel like I've been learning this job for the last 4 years. I've pretty much been at City Hall full time. I know how the city operates. I think we're at a pivotal time right now, the city, with growth and with some challenges with caps, with the economy in its current state, how we're going to navigate all that. But you have to start by really knowing how the city works and being comfortable running an organization fiscally, but with true passion for the mission. And I truly believe in this community and what it stands for.
Sure. Yeah. How would you feel that your campaign is going so far? I mean, we're less than a month away from election. Yeah. Obviously there's, you got signs everywhere, you got advertisement everywhere. I love your billboards, by the way.
I
think those are so cool.
I've gotten so many good comments on my logo and my look. So thank you.
Awesome. How are you feeling about your chances so far leading up to this?
I feel great. And I feel like the momentum's in my favor right now. daily have calls for more signs. I'm almost out, 300
Okay.
signs out. Thank you. 300 signs out there, and I'm hearing from people. I just had another meeting last week of a group of constituents who want to help me, and this truly is a grassroots campaign, and so I'm really proud of the work we've done. I'm proud of the commitment that I have a volunteer group that's helping me, and I'm proud that I'm running as an independent, and it's about me. It's really no labels, no games. I am in it to serve Fargo, and I know how to do it.
Yeah, that's great there. So obviously this is the first time that Fargo will be coming in with a full-time mayor. Do you
Right.
think this has been much needed, and are you ready for all of like the day-to-day challenges that are going to come with? I mean, from what you're sounding, it sounds like it's been full-time,
Yes.
kind of in a way already.
It truly has.
But being that this will be the first true role of being paid, do you think you're ready for what's to come with that?
Yeah, Fargo's really had a full-time mayor for years now. It just wasn't paid at the level it should have been paid. And yes, Fargo is large enough city now that it absolutely demands a full-time mayor. And the mayor's position, sure, it's an ambassador for the city, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done in advocacy and policy work, both locally but at the federal level. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with the staff. The mayoral weekly cabinet meetings will be a priority for me, and that will be the most important hour of the week for engagement of the leaders of each department and making sure we're staying on task and really getting their input, who serve the citizens of Fargo, and again, amping up that community engagement piece. And so it's an operational role too, not doing the work, but making sure you're there, you're available, you understand how the city works, and you're there to navigate challenges and opportunities.
Sure. If you're elected, what is the first thing or the first few things that you would realistically like to do?
So I've talked about this for a while. The first is the cabinet meetings,
Okay.
and really making them robust and making sure we get right to work on the strategic priorities for the city, because we're in the middle of budgeting already.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's got to be aligned with the financing that's going to support those priorities. That's number one. Number two is that community engagement, and to really make that actionable for the citizens, and that I want to schedule quarterly community forums where we bring staff with us and we have a conversation. Right now, I'm sure you've watched some of the city commission meetings at the end when we have general comments. It's wonderful. We allow general public comments at the end, and it's structured, and it matches North Dakota law now. I'm proud of that because I fought to keep the general comments in addition to comments on agenda topics. But you can't respond. So people speak and we listen. Sometimes that can be awkward. Let's have a conversation with the community, truly get input, and over time build on those conversations. And so I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah,
Sure.
that feels like a great way. That kind of leads, one of the questions we had is with Fargo growing at such a rapid pace. I mean,
Right.
that is a great thing. Obviously comes with growing pains. From what you're saying, that's kind of your way of keeping the community feel here. I feel like as the people that have been here as long-term residents, they feel like they're forgotten about with new people in South Fargo and
Right.
growing and bigger and better. And it's
Right.
like, it's nice to hear that you want to keep that sense of community with the people. I like that idea.
Thank you, 100%. And when I delivered several of my yard signs as well, and I hadn't been in some parts of Fargo, and I can't believe some of the areas that I hadn't seen before. And so you're absolutely right, and we need to continue that engagement. And I proposed this 3 years ago, but it didn't get any traction. But I'm very serious about this. I think it is truly a demonstration of my commitment to communication and transparency.
Sure.
Definitely.
I went to one of the city commission meetings about the convention center.
Sure.
What is your opinion on the convention center? And then as far as location, is there any clarification as to where that's going to go? Or do you have an opinion on the matter you'd like to share?
So the next step next week on the 21st, we're having an informational brown bag on this to see where we are on the financing apples to apples. And I've said this from the beginning. As a commissioner, number one responsibility is the stewardship of this project long-term and sustainability of financing. And so once I see those numbers, we get some of the questions answered, like for Bruhala, part of their proposal requires a TIF, right? How are we going to make sure that that is going to happen? Downtown location, there are some open-ended questions about the management of the facility and financing around that. So there's some real conversation that needs to happen to clarify all of that and to really get to the heart of financial sustainability of the convention center so it doesn't fall back on the citizens when, in fact, it was intended to be paid for by a lodging tax.
So a super hot topic surrounding that convention center is, we're down to the Civic and the Bruhala area.
Right.
Both of those have been hit really heavily with talk of the homeless. What
Yeah.
is your stance on that? Do you think it needs to be cleaned up? Do you have a plan if you think it does? Or do you think as the city sits, we're at a comfortable level in handling that?
No, there's still work to do there. It's such a complex problem, homelessness, and a complex problem requires many solutions. There's no silver bullet here, but there's a lot of action that's been taken, including the work that we've done to move the Downtown Engagement Center. That open house is actually May 28th. We just got a notice about that ribbon cutting. And so that's going to happen before the end of this month. And by the way, I worked really hard on not only lobbying in Bismarck for 2 legislative sessions about this new model of resource and recovery center, but helping raise the private business funding that we were able to raise to help get this moved in the way that we did. So that's number one. Number two is we've taken a good look at our ordinances. I think you're going to see another one coming forward about how we enforce behaviors in parking ramps and other things that I'm proposing. But, the ordinances we have need to be enforced for any bad behavior, homelessness or not. And I think with the new police chief, the third point is you're going to see some changes, as I said, in how community policing is managed, but especially in the downtown area. I know that Chief Stepanowicz already has ideas on how that's going to be managed and navigated. So there's much more of a police presence downtown, which makes a huge difference all year round. And so I just think, we need to be, number one, really communicative about the problem, be honest about it. That's where we got to start there. And the perception is reality for folks, right? But then how do we talk about moving ahead when we have made progress in these areas and help people understand that, yes, statistically, it truly is safe across the city and we're getting better. But we need to be honest about the perceptions and talk about the incredible value of this city and with the facts.
Sure. Talking about police and maybe firefighters and other volunteer positions like that or paid positions, do you think there's a shortage in Fargo or does there need to be an increase in personnel?
I think right now with the new chief, we're going to see some changes maybe in the way that it's staffed and that we manage our resources that we have, how we utilize a lot of technology that's put in place under the former chief, made great strides in that area, but there should be some efficiencies realized for the citizens from that investment as well. And so I know he has a lot of ideas, including continuing to build the relationships with the folks that they work with on a daily basis in both our sister cities, the state's attorney, right? All of that has impact. And so I think you're going to see a different approach. And also I think you're going to see more communication coming out from the police department as well.
Okay.
On the topic of city personnel, I don't know if I ever told you this. I actually used to work for the City of Fargo Public Works Department.
You did.
When I first moved here. And I'm still in contact. Some guys
Yeah.
that have really good friends out of there. Something they wanted me to ask you is they said they think
Sure.
that city wages are falling behind compared to like the private sector.
Yep.
They always talk about we need more people, we're behind, we need pay raises. Do you have any plan or any ideas on how to keep those guys competitive and keep, great employees within the city?
I have said this and I mean it. Our city, Team Fargo, is the number one asset for the city. We've invested many have worked there for decades, truly. We just had our employee recognition event. It was amazing. We have people who've worked here for 40 years, 45 years. It's incredible.
Yeah.
We have to keep our most important asset on behalf of the citizens of Fargo. Without people, we don't have the services and we don't have the great city that we have. And so for every budget, a COLA has been a deal breaker for me. To make sure that we have the COLA, especially for those who have stepped out. But we need and we have a commitment and a schedule on how we're going to look at department to make sure we are keeping up. The last focus, because of public safety sales tax, was public safety, but we need to do that across the board, and there needs to be a schedule of how we're looking at that and keeping pace with the private industry. And it's real. It's our number one asset. We have to protect our number one asset.
Sure. You had talked about one of the foundations is fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
So the city of Fargo is, I believe, $1.3 billion in debt. What is your opinion on that debt? Is that good debt, bad debt? Is it just the cost of a growing city and utilizing it for infrastructure, whether that's special assessments, payrolls, whatever that is? What is your opinion on that debt?
My opinion is it's been responsible debt. And by the way, relative to the ratio of the budget, this debt has been common for 25 years for the city of Fargo, but we've been a growing city, so the debt's increased, so has the budget increased, right? I think of it this way. Most people have a mortgage. When you go buy a home, you don't put down $300,000 to buy the home, but you know how you're going to pay for it over time, probably with the down payment, right? And then annually how you are going to budget so that you can make your house payment and your utility payment. But no one comes in with, most people don't, I certainly didn't, with $300,000 to say I'm going to buy this property with cash, right?
Sure.
So how do we save, and you also can't save your way to a $250 million upgrade for water treatment plant. You look at those investments, who, by the way, now are a return for this, the city, water treatment and water reclamation, are revenue generators for the city because we've regionalized those. So I think that's very responsible. Over $500 million of that debt is special assessments. So the city's able to bond and pay for those improvements, and then citizens pay that back over time. City of Fargo has less than a 1% default on special assessments, but as you know, special assessments go with the property, and so that's secure debt. A lot of the $300+ million that are part of the utility expansions is 2% money from the Bank of North Dakota. That's responsible debt. So right there you've got $800 million of the $1.2 billion that we're talking about there as just as an example. A big chunk of that is our pension programs. Most companies have a pension program that they have to manage and watch over. And so the key is that it's transparent. We've been fiscally responsible in how we pay for it. We have a calendar of when things are paid off so that we can manage what are the future investments, for instance, for our CIP every year, capital improvement plan. And so I think the city's been very responsible in that debt.
Sure. A few of the candidates have been very vocal about special assessments as far as being against them.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of special assessments and the city essentially being the financer or the bank
right.
to the
and
property?
So it's the system that we have. We studied this about 6 years ago. We've had task force after task force look at this. The good news is about 6 years ago, the last task force, we inverted the model. Previously, citizens paid about 70% of specials. City paid 30%. Now that's inverted. Now the city pays 70%, residents pay 30%, plus we implemented a number of caps. And so we really don't hear a lot of pushback anymore on specials once those changes were made. Now, having said that, we're in the process of implementing our growth plan, our land development code, and all incentives associated with that to drive the right kind of development that the growth plan identifies. And so as part of that, we'll be looking at all of that. And that's responsible too, right? Getting ahead of how we want to grow as a city. Also knowing that our growth is going to be limited once the diversion is complete. So again, I just see it every day when I'm in my office. The work that the city does, it is very responsible. It's transparent. There's a plan, but how do we share that proactively with citizens so they really believe it and understand all of that? Is important.
Just touching on those specials one more time, there's obviously we're realtors, so that's a super huge hot topic for us.
Yeah.
There are a couple candidates who are kind of running on like abolishing specials.
Right.
So you're here to tell us that they're necessary. It's needed basically for the community to grow. Is that basically what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. We're not going to unravel that. There's also an equity issue if we were suddenly to stop specials for new growth, and now citizens who paid their share over the years. Now we have there are new homeowners aren't going to have the special. But the other thing that really happens is, by having the developer pay for it, it increases the cost of a home. And so, part of your home is paid for over 20 years. I mean, the impact of that would be a much higher rate at the bank to get the mortgage and than what you pay for a portion of that through specials over time.
Yeah. Fargo's definitely filled with a lot of hot topics. Another
Yes.
one we wanted to get your take on. This is so prevalent among the younger generation is the banning of the flavored nicotine.
Yeah.
Can you give us just a short minute-long
Sure.
answer of where you stand on that and what you think the right move is?
Yeah, so right now, we just had a meeting with the business owners that sell the product. There were a lot of good questions. I would say the focus of this first kind of brown bag on this topic that I requested, if you watched the city commission meeting, that we needed more dialogue around this because the original ordinance that came through, I thought was very black and white, and I understand what the challenge is, especially for the schools right now with underage vaping. Mm-hmm. But the implications of banning the product without hearing from the business community, in my opinion, was approached in the wrong way. And so we had a good first conversation. I think it focused mostly on the health impacts of vaping. We're going to have another meeting that the chamber's going to co-sponsor and lead on what are the real impacts to the business community who's selling this product. You know, there's real jobs that are part of this industry out in our community and business owner impacts. And so we'll see where we land. I don't see the same kind of ordinance coming back. I think the focus will be more on what can we do collectively to address the issue of underage vaping in a different way. But it's got to start with community conversation.
Sure. The city of Fargo mayor race is a nonpartisan race.
Yes,
What
sure
would you
is.
say to people who maybe have labeled you a liberal?
It's absolutely false and untrue. I've lobbied for 30 years in Bismarck, and no one ever could assign either party to me because I was so neutral and pragmatic in my approach. I've had both political parties approach me to run for offices, and I've turned them down. I am not active in either party. I'm very much pragmatic and do my homework and make the best decision I can at the time with the information I have. I've always taken that approach. I show up, I'm prepared, and I'm honest, and that's who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't subscribe to either party, and truly, this office is nonpartisan. You work for every resident of Fargo, regardless of affiliation or party. We're here to solve problems around streets and infrastructure and public safety. None of that requires a political slant. I don't think it should.
Sure.
Do you think you've handled kind of the heat of that pretty well? I mean, we're on Facebook probably or social media probably chronically, but people are, ridiculous. I mean, they say horrible things.
I know.
Do you feel like you've handled that pretty well and you're prepared for what would come if you do win? I think it's just going to be constant, and and that's hard. That's really hard for people to deal with.
Number one, I have really thick skin. And I got thicker in the last 4 years, but I had thick skin going into it. We all just can do the best we can. And some people you're just not going to change their mind, but I'm always respectful, and I really try to always be professional in my responses and truly try to understand where someone's coming from and listen first. And so I think that goes a long way. And I truly have, I have friends across the board and very good friends, and politics just doesn't come into play. I just respect people for their own given talents and perspectives, and we all are better for them. And but I don't dip into the vitriol. I remain professional. So yes, I think I have.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think I have.
That's great to hear. Obviously Fargo has got a lot of problems. It sounds like we're going to be working on here, but I think there's going to be a lot of great things that you're going to bring to Fargo too. Do you have anything specific that you're very excited that you would love to say? Within my term, I would love to bring this to Fargo. Is there any businesses, any ideas, things that maybe the younger generation could be really excited about?
Well, number one, the community engagement is going to change, and the transparency. And that is a goal of mine, and with the focus on the youth and how let's get their input on what ideas they have to help us be the vibrant city they want. What's their vision? What could it look like? What's missing? Let's have that conversation. As I said, we have a tool that can do that really easily to gather that input and then utilize it in decision making. So I would say that's the first thing. The second is I do think Fargo needs two more commissioners at large.
Really?
I do. I support that. I think we've grown enough. I think it would alleviate some of the pressures on portfolio for the commission, which in turn maybe would encourage other people from different generations to run, knowing that the burden isn't as much as current commissioners have it. But I do support that at large, adding the 2 commissioners. And City Hall was built to add 2 more commissioners, so that's not a new expense. So that would be an area that I would certainly work with the other commissioners on to see the appetite. I think getting ahead of and engaging the public in the actual budgeting process more, and have people share what, again, like I said, what are the opportunities that they see for Fargo, and how do you want the city to grow? And then the growth plan implementation is going to have huge impacts. You're in the business on what this is going to look like for future growth, and we need to continue to be transparent and take stakeholder feedback for that process.
So does this mean if we ask for a Buc-ee's, you can make some phone calls and make that happen?
I don't know if I can make it happen, but I'm certainly open to trying to make it happen.
What's a Buc-ee's?
The Buc-ee's, the big gas station? You know what I'm talking about,
I do.
right?
I've never heard of
It's
that.
down south. They say it's like a Walmart, but it's a gas station.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've never been to one, but you'll have to look it up sometime.
We'll have to get one. We'll
Yeah.
have to get one.
Yeah.
Talking about maybe affordability, and in any growing
Yeah.
city, it's hard to have housing affordability. Obviously,
It
Joseph
sure
and I
is.
would know that as real estate agents. How do you think we can bridge that gap between affordability for young families and in a growing city?
Yeah, again, really complex issue right
Yeah,
now, and
of
it is across the country. You know that better than anyone. Number one, we need to dust off the MetroCog housing study, because there was a lot of good recommendations in that, and it's been put on a shelf. We need to bring the right stakeholders to the table: the BIA, the Housing Authority, the Land Trust. That was called out in that report. Habitat for Humanity. All the organizations have anything to do with housing. So that's step one. Let's get the short and long-term priorities identified, and let's get going on actionable steps. Number two, we have to have good relationships with our other electeds and have a conversation both at the state and federal level about housing. This is such a big issue, and it is across the country, as you know. And so what is North Dakota's plan for affordable housing? What does the city promote and support? What does the state promote and support? How do we work with our federal delegation federally to take a good hard look at that? As the diversion comes to completion too, there's going to be impact, of course, right? Flood insurance eventually will change the cost of housing and living in a house, but it's also going to hem in where we can grow and what those communities are going to look like and what kinds of housing are incented as part of that growth plan and that land development code. And so there's just many, many factors here, but for me it starts with the MetroCog housing study.
Okay.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah.
Under your leadership, if you were to win, how far do you see Fargo moving south? Like, do you ever see us getting a 76th interchange? I mean, I've only been here the last 7 years, and I think what I've seen between 32nd and 52nd
Yeah.
is
nuts.
unbelievable. And now, 45th goes to 60,
Right.
60 whatever. And I'm like, where does it stop? How far in the next term could you see that possibly going?
Yeah, I mean, again, with smart growth, certainly, but it's got to be done the right way. When I moved to Fargo 25 years ago, I lived on 58th Avenue South. I was one of the last streets there.
Really?
Right? Bennett Elementary had just been built. And I took 52nd Avenue to downtown every day to work. At the time, I was at United Blood Services then. And that street on 52nd Avenue South was not very busy then, right? Now, I have, you show up at 5 o'clock on 52nd Avenue South, you're waiting a while. And so, yes, we have to be thoughtful in what that access and those routes are going to look like in the future with growth. But that should be all part of the growth plan and the work that's coming with a growing city.
Sure. Comparing to the other candidates that are running for mayor, what do you think that separates you from the other candidates specifically that makes you the most qualified for this position?
First of all, my experience. I've worked for large corporate organizations. I've managed billion-dollar budgets well and efficiently. I've actually led teams, very good teams. Culture was important to me. So, working with Team Fargo and what that could look like, really, the employee engagement survey certainly identified some real concerns. We need to take that seriously and keep that work going. And I've been active with my 5 departments, making sure that work continues. And so that's important to me. The other thing that's, I think, really makes me shine above is my 30 years of lobbying and advocacy and policy work. That is so important, and the ability to build real relationships. Some of the people I even lobbied with 25 years ago, by the way, a lot of them are still in Bismarck lobbying. When I go to the Capitol, everyone, we're all excited to see each other still, right? It starts with relationships.
Yeah.
And then, I truly do my homework. I will remain nonpartisan as mayor, and I won't bring in personal agenda other than I want to do what's best for all citizens of Fargo.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, we've loved watching your campaign, and we're thrilled that you get to be our first reoccurring guest.
I can't believe that.
From a year ago.
What an honor.
They have changed so much here. We love to end our podcast with a little bit of a fun question here. We talk about a lot of harsh things.
Done?
And it's fun. It's fun to kind of bring it down to a little bit of a cooler level here.
Sure.
So on a Friday night after a long week with Denise as the new mayor, what does a Friday night look like for you?
A Friday night looks like for me probably collapsing on the couch, but hopefully in the summers I was fortunate I have a small in-ground pool in my backyard. That's my lake place. Hanging out by the pool, watching a Twins game maybe,
Nice.
right? That's one of my favorite things to do, is actually floating in the pool watching a Twins game. We have a TV that's built into the side of our garage, so I watch Twins games in the summer in the pool. That's one of my favorite things to do. But also hopefully getting together with my family. I have a new granddaughter, Andy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's almost a year. She'll be a year in June, but she's adorable. Has more black hair than any baby I've ever seen. Just a full head of hair. Her dad did too. And so they live in West Fargo, hanging out. I've really not spent enough time with her, especially this campaign season. So I would hope it's with family. My dad still is living, and he lives in Moorhead. We go to brunch every Sunday. So, doing more of that, being with family, remembering what's important, spending more time with my granddaughter.
That's great.
Awesome.
Well, now that we know you have an in-ground pool, now we're going to have to be
Okay, you're welcome anytime. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much,
Excellent.
Denise. I
You
think
bet.
that's all we got today.
we really appreciate you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Appreciate you.